Local leaders in Northampton meeting tonight to discuss whether or not to put a cap on the number of marijuana dispensaries in their city. Welcome to Western Mass News at 10, everyone, here on Fox 6. I'm Chris Pisano. Western Mass News reporter Matt Satilli following that meeting for us, and he joins us now live in studio to break it down. Matt?
Chris, tonight's discussion took place after the first dispensary in the state closed last month in Northampton, and a separate dispensary proposal was denied by the mayor. But ultimately, subcommittee members were split. It will go back before the whole city council for further consideration. Members of the Northampton Committee on Legislative Matters gathering on Monday night to discuss whether a cap should be placed on marijuana dispensaries in the city.
When there was the proposed dispensary in Florence, that was kind of a tipping point for the community to say, hey, wait a minute, do we have more than we want?
The meeting was recommended to the subcommittee by the full city council and comes just months after Mayor Gina Louise Sciarra rejected a dispensary proposal for the first time for a location in downtown Florence. And the Source became the first dispensary in the state to close on December 16. While some advocated for the cap for safety concerns.
The more dispensaries there are, the more we're normalizing use in our community, the more sort of very subliminal advertising there is. I pass 4 or 5 dispensaries with my kids every single day.
Mayor Sciarra counters, saying a cap could drive out the mom and pop shops,
which will make it more likely that only bigger businesses and multi-state operators, MSOs, or what they're called, will have the resources to acquire them.
Another factor discussed, a potential exemption for social equity candidates, people who are parts of communities who have been targeted by the war on drugs. There is currently one candidate operating a dispensary in the city. Dr. Robin Goldstein, a Northampton native and professor on marijuana economics at UC Davis, adds a cap may actually put the community at greater risk.
It would actually endanger youth and adult health by increasing the proportion of illegal cannabis in the market that's untested for contaminants and that has unknown potency.
Ultimately, after more than 3.5 hours of deliberation, the motion for a neutral recommendation passed with a 3-1 vote and will go back before the city council.
I think council deserves a shot at this and the full council to weigh in.
No official word yet on when the full city council will take up this motion. Of course, we'll keep you posted with the latest information. Reporting live in studio, Matt Satilli, Western Mass News.